I'm Garrow Kedigian, a New Yorker turned Francophile, so in love with the city of love that I just decided to purchase a pied-à-terre in the heart of Paris. Welcome to Chateau Garrow. It's located in an old building, and the apartment hasn't been touched since the 1970s. It's a complete gem, but it needs some major TLC. So the kitchen, out of all the rooms in this apartment, was actually the scariest space of all. I've invited Homeworthy to join me as I renovate it from top to bottom over the next few months. It won't be easy, but I'm determined to make her absolutely fabulous again. Hopefully, the board is going to approve it. We'll see. I hope you can come along for an inside look into this exciting journey.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey Homeworthy fans, New York City interior designer Garrow Kedigian here. We're here in the 7th arrondissement on Rue de Varenne, across the street from the Musée de Rodin, and I'm working on my new project, my newest apartment, Chateau Garrow II, and I'm so excited to share the renovation of this apartment with you guys. Come, let's take a look. Isn't this amazing? The building dates back to 1890, and it is a classic Parisian gem with amazing proportions and beautiful architecture. The scale of this amazing hallway is what drew me immediately to the building, to the apartment. The walls are paneled and they're just embellished with all this architectural detail, and it's really the scale and the proportion that is just magnificent. Come, let's take a look at the courtyard. Many of the apartments in Paris are internal courtyard facing, just as this one is. And I love that because it gives you a little bit of a buffer from the street. So when I was looking for an apartment, my second apartment in Paris, I really wanted something that was going to be quiet, peaceful, and a little bit of a buffer away from the street, which is exactly what this is. My apartment is actually on the 3rd floor, what we call the 3rd floor, but in France, the ground floor is actually labeled 0, so technically they call my apartment to be 2nd floor, but it's actually called the noble floor. That's where all the aristocracy and the nobility would live, because the buildings in Paris were actually developed before there were elevators. So it was more prestigious to live on a lower floor so you wouldn't have to climb as many stairs. A lot of these courtyards in Paris, you see a lot of variation in the design elements. And some of them are more elaborate and have gardens. Some of them are a little bit simpler, like this one. This is quite simple, but beautifully done. We have some gorgeous plants, the caretaker takes care of. She lovingly takes care of these. This is actually an olive tree, and it lives here all year round. Can you believe it? And I've never not seen this hydrangea in flowering. It's simple, but it's really beautiful. Even the doors to the little garbage bin area are just beautiful. Look at this, it's gorgeous, beautifully designed. It's all about simplicity, but classical and beautiful design. The bottom of the building has this wonderful coining detail, which is very traditional, but it's also not too overwhelming. So it's actually, continues the flavor of the tranquility of the space. So my apartment is actually through the courtyard in the back. So come, let's take a look. Et voila, here we are on the 2nd floor. 3rd floor for you Americans, because remember, the 1st floor is called 0. Anyway, there's no shortage of drama and detail in this building. And as you can see, look at this amazing canvas artwork on the wall. So the story goes, the seller told me this, that the previous owner of this apartment was actually a museum curator. And somebody brought this amazing canvas to his workroom to be restored. And unfortunately, that patron passed away and had no heirs. And the canvas ended up being with him for many decades. And in the end, he decided to install it in the entrance staircase of his apartment building. And it has been here since, apparently since 1930. Isn't that amazing? It's lovely to be greeted by this when you come home to your beautiful apartment in Paris. So as previously discussed, this is actually the noble floor, la belle étage. This is the floor that was designed for nobility, and hence you have these tremendous ceiling heights. That was the thing that really caught my attention, was really the volumes of the rooms. Prepare yourselves for drama. But also, I'm warning you, so this apartment had not been touched for over 55 years. The people that I bought it from had not renovated it since the early 70s. So, come on through, you're gonna be shocked. Welcome to Chateau Garrow 2.0. Here we are in the entrance foyer. This space is amazing. It's so dramatic. The ceiling is so tall. I love the quirkiness of this apartment the minute I walked in the door. It just feels like an old chateau. So it was just perfect for me. But this space is actually a little bit of a challenge because it's actually not that big. What gives it really the drama is this 12.5-foot ceiling. That's what I love about this apartment. Every room has a 12.5-foot ceiling and this gorgeous plaster dental crown molding that goes through the space. Isn't that just majestic? So this room, I really wanted to paint this in a lighter color, only because I remember when I first saw the apartment, the previous owner had the room actually quite dark, and I didn't really understand and appreciate how much natural light the apartment gets. So I think what I'm going to do, and I'm actually toying around with a couple of different colorways here, either a taupey tone or sort of a gray taupe. Which is actually a little different from my work. But I am going to do the little bit of gilded accents the way that I had in my previous apartment. You guys might remember that fabulous little apartment that I had in the 9th. And then maybe do this fabulous marbleized wallpaper. This is also similar to what I did in the 9th, but bit of a different colorway, a bit of a different scale. You always have to calibrate all your colors and your patterns to the size of your new spaces, of course. Anyway, the thing that I love the most about this entrance foyer are these dramatic doors that lead into the living room. Welcome to my new living room. It is a stunning, gorgeous space. Again, the ceiling heights in here are 12.5 feet high. And the crown molding, oh my God. It has these cherubs, it has dental molding, it has egg and dart, you name it. I am so excited to decorate this room. The room is actually exuding in all sorts of architectural charm and character. The floors are a beautiful herringbone. Of course, we protected them all before the guys started demolitions. And it has a fabulous mantle, this wonderful marble mantle, which is original to the building. This is actually fairly typical in Parisian apartments. You see this all the time. They always put this angled piece of porcelain to make up the difference between the firebox and the mantel legs. But I actually don't really like to see the white there. It looks a little raw, a little unfinished to me. So traditionally in New York, actually, we use black slate. So I think that that's going to look a little bit nicer. But everything else I'm going to definitely keep. This gorgeous brass trim that frames the fireplace mantle, firebox opening, absolutely, we have to keep that. Also, there's this magnificent mirror. It's an overmantel mirror, and I negotiated that into my purchase price because the old owner wanted to take it with her. Can you believe it? Unfortunately, it's all protected now, but I can show you the mirror that was in the entrance foyer. Look at this. This is also fabulous. Apparently, it was an 18th century mirror, and I am definitely keeping that, and it's going to go in the entrance foyer. And actually, this is a key to narrow spaces like that entrance foyer. The best thing you can do is actually use a mirror to make your room look a little bit wider. The mirror is a great trick for that. People who know my work know that I use a lot of blues. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know. Blue, 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 one of my favorite colors. But this living room, I don't know why, for some reason, the minute I walked in here, I really felt like it would be a turquoise. It has such a vibrant nature. It's just so bright and cheerful and happy. So I really wanted to find a color that has a little bit of energy to it. And I was in the south of France recently, and I love the color of the water, of the Mediterranean. So that really is what inspired me for this room. So these are two colors. One is actually Caribbean blue water, fabulous color, and the other one is actually Pacific Ocean blue. I'm sort of between the two, and of course the room will be high gloss because, it's me. And I'm sure you guys have noticed this magnificent landscape that's on the wall behind me. So I've actually thought about this really, really hard and long. And when I first saw the apartment, I did love it, but it's just not what I want for the space. So unfortunately, it's going to have to go. And it's actually not anything special. It's not de Gournay or anything like that. It was actually, if you look at it closely, it's actually not done as well as you'd like it to be. So I think this room is going to be a bright turquoise. The ceiling is going to be this amazing brass color. It's going to be almost like a brassy, all high gloss. The room is really anchored by this amazing Murano glass chandelier. And this is one of the pieces that I actually negotiated into my purchase of the apartment. I loved it so much. It's this wonderful, almost cognac-y glass. It's just lovely. It almost looks like a piece of candy that you could just eat it. So I absolutely had to have it, and I actually think that my brassy color and high gloss on the ceiling is really going to augment its presence for the space. The most dramatic architectural feature of this apartment, and you see it the moment you walk in from the entrance foyer and look into the living room, is this curved glass window wall. Look at this amazing window. It is fabulous. Have you ever seen a living room with a quarter-round window in it? I absolutely love it. And you're looking right into this fabulous courtyard. How am I going to furnish this room? It's a big challenge. You know, I've never really done a room that had just one curved corner in it. But I've decided I'm going to do a fabulous banquette. And I spent many hours actually preparing a template, which you can see on the floor here. This is actually what I'm designing. Look at this fabulous little number over here. We're going to do tufted. And this room, I really wanted to have a more, almost like a Caribbean blue water. You know, that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I think the contrast between that and this fabulous little cognac velvet's going to be smashing. What do you think of that? And then, of course, the most fabulous fringe trim, as usual. So as you're working on your interiors, the most important thing is always to scale your furniture to the size of your room. So I actually spent a lot of time working on this template, which I'm actually going to take home with me. I'm leaving in a couple of days, go back to New York. And I'm going to send this template to my upholstery workroom, only because I wanted this banquette to be just perfectly lined up with the curvature of the window, to feature the curve of the window, and really to stop at the ends where my curtains are going to be. So I'm designing this carpet for the living room. And I've never actually seen a carpet like this before, but I thought about it very carefully. And where I have my curved banquette, I'm going to do a curved corner on this carpet. I think it's going to be very interesting. And then I'm going to repeat in that carpet some of my color details, which I love the contrast of this coppery color against my turquoise wall. So that's the beginnings of the living room. I'm going to take you now into the other spaces. When you have tall ceilings, for me, the most important thing is to make sure you have tall doorway openings. That is why when I saw this apartment, I loved the doors coming into the living room from the entrance foyer. But unfortunately, the other doorways, such as this one that leads from the living room into the dining room, were just regular height doors. It actually is a very, very important architectural detail. When you actually have tall ceilings, when you walk through a doorway opening that is actually tall, that is when your eye notices the height of the ceilings. So this is such a dramatic, example of how a tall doorway opening next to one that was originally a short doorway opening, not for long. We're going to bust this open. We're going to make a pair of doors going into here at the full height to match the door height of the living room. So come on through. We're going to make the living room and the dining room a little bit more symbiotic. As with most French apartments, the rooms are enfilades, so you go room to room, which means that a lot of rooms tend to become circulation corridors. So this dining room, for instance, is actually the hinge pin of the apartment. So you have two doorways coming in, one from the entrance foyer, one from the living room, and then another two doorways going out, one to the library and one to what's going to become a bedroom hallway. But you really have this as Grand Central Station. So when you're designing a space like this, it's important to keep in mind your circulation pattern. So for me, I'm going to push a dining table with a banquette to one side and sort of keep the alleyway through so that one could cross the room to access the living room on one corner or go through to the entrance foyer. The dining room is the most sun-filled room of the apartment. And initially, I thought I would paint this room in a little bit of a darker color, but upon having spent time in the apartment, decided that I really want to paint it a light, bright color. So if you remember my apartment at the Carlisle, I think you guys might have seen the video on Homeworthy, I painted the living room walls in that apartment a yellow. It was a beautiful yellow, sunshiny color. This is a little bit more towards a mustardy tone, and I'm going to trim it out with a very deep, almost midnight blue black, and I think that's going to be very nice, dramatic for the space. Even though it has a dramatic, fabulous ceiling height, which I love, it doesn't have much architectural detail, so I've decided that I would like to add some wall paneling in here. So these are the elevation studies that I've made When you see on this elevation looking towards the library, you can see where I've drawn in the heights of the original doorways. So in this room, we're going to dramatize things by elevating the doors and making them pairs of doors and making them go as high up as the doors in the living room, which is going to be magnificent. Also, in the wall paneling, I'm going to incorporate some built-in mirrors. Again, this space is not that wide, and I want to make the space feel a little bit wider. And a really great strategy for anybody that has a narrow, long room is to put actually a large built-in mirror. It's a mirror that basically sits within the panel. It's not decorative, it's part of the architecture, and it becomes almost like another window in the space. I think it's going to be very successful in this room. So the dining table is actually going to go on this wall, shared with the library. We're going to go in there in a minute, with the banquette and the table pushed to one side, and then we're going to have the fabulous built-in mirror between the doors, and these are the two doorways. One was going to go into the library, one goes into the bedroom hallway, and then the other two, which is perfectly symmetrical. I actually love the symmetry of this space. I'm a huge fan of architectural symmetry, and I'm going to put a little buffet cabinet along this wall, and it's going to be absolutely stunning. Can't wait. Large scope of work is in the library. You're going to be shocked by the next room. Come on through. The opportunity exists for me to create my own crown molding, which is great, and I can't wait, because I've actually designed something very dramatic. And this room to me is going to be my library. So one of the things that I didn't have in my old apartment was a room where I could work in. And those of you who know me know that I work 24/7. So the room that I work in is the most important to me. The worst part was they built closets that came into this original space. And the closets were actually all built with an 8-foot ceiling. So believe it or not, they gave up 4.5 feet of ceiling space above. So the first moment I bought the apartment, I told my contractor, please go in there and do some demolition so that I can actually see the volumes of the rooms. And that's really important, because understanding how you're going to design a room is critical into knowing what your proportions and your dimensions are. So thankfully, this room ended up being an amazing proportion. It has really great volume, wonderful ceiling heights, and as I said, unfortunately, there was no crown molding on the wall that had been preserved from previously. I was hoping we would find it, tucked away in there underneath the drop ceiling, but it wasn't. But we're going to reconfigure the space. We're going to basically put it back to the way it was originally. The wall line, which will be symmetrical on the fireplace mantle, so there was a fireplace mantle here as well. The fireplace mantle in the library, I'm not quite sure about. It was here, and it actually is wooden. It's like a Belection molding, which is not terrible, and I think actually a coat of black paint might make it look much better. But it is a Paris apartment, and you really do yearn for your fabulous marble fireplaces in your Paris apartment. So I might have to do a little shopping expedition in the Paris flea market to find something better. So my strategy is to create a bedroom hallway which is as narrow as possible to create the symmetry of the room around the fireplace. Initially, there was no doorway between the library and the bedroom hallway. So if you imagine there was this long bedroom hallway that came off of the dining room, and I actually think that there's an essential connection to be made between the bedroom hallway and the library. So I realized that this pair of windows and the pair of windows in my bedroom are actually in line with each other. So what I decided to do is to create a perpendicular axis here. So I'm going to create a pair of doors that are centered on the library windows on this side of the room. And then I'm going to create another doorway opening, and believe it or not, this is actually a bearing wall. So I had to hire an engineer, and the building is reviewing it. It's kind of a drama. But the opportunity was perfect because we just went into the Olympic Games, and I closed on the apartment just before the Olympics started. So my contractor had 2 weeks before there was a moratorium on work that could be done in Paris. So he came through and he did all the strategic demolition that I wanted him to do. And then I had the apartment cleaned so I can come back and take all my measurements. And I met with an engineer and we designed how we're going to structure this opening, and hopefully the board is going to approve it. We'll see. So on the end wall, I'm going to build these 2 bookcase cabinets that will not go all the way to the ceiling. I'm going to do these little pediment caps on top of those, and I'm going to position my desk on that side of the room. And in the foreground area, I'm going to have a little seating area, which is, I love to have that in my office. So whenever I have clients over or friends, we congregate in the little intimate sitting area in the library. This is the one time actually wall-to-wall carpeting is actually a good thing, because I want to rip it out, but it gives me an opportunity to have a canvas on the floor. You see, I laid out where my sofa is going to go. Here's my 36-inch mark. Voila. And I know that my sofa is about 90 inches long. Voila, look at that, perfect. You know that I did this before. But it really gives you a good idea to scale the room. And then my desk, I actually have two desks that I'm considering using in this space. And this is the smaller one of the two desks, which I think might be a little bit too small. And the second one is actually 74 inches long. There, that actually might be just the right size for the space. It's 42. This is a great opportunity when you have a raw space like this, and you can actually draw the dimensions of your furniture pieces right on the floor to see the size of the pieces. Yeah, I think it's going to be the 74-inch size. Definitely. This room is actually going to be my red room. All of you that know my work know that I love red, and I have a red library in New York, but I think I actually want one here too. It's going to be a little bit of a different color. I've really calibrated it really well, and I can't wait to show you, but here is actually a preview. This is a great red. It has a great vibrancy to it, and I think the trim is going to be a little bit more of this taupey tone. It's very Henri Samuel. Henri Samuel was a fabulous French designer, and he had this magnificent living room which really inspired this library. So I can't wait to see this room develop and share that with you. So the kitchen, out of all the rooms in this apartment, was actually the scariest space of all. You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe that this was in a Parisian apartment, but the kitchen was redone sometime in the early 70s, and that is just screaming all over every square inch of this kitchen. Firstly, they had actually dropped the ceilings in the kitchen. So can you imagine? They gave up 4.5 feet of ceiling height. So the first thing I did when I bought the apartment was I asked the contractor to make a hole in the ceiling just to confirm, and voila, we have 4.5 feet of ceiling space that was covered up for 50 years. Can you believe it? I can't wait. I'm going to design the most exquisite little kitchen in here. The ceiling height was actually here. Can you believe that? They had dropped the ceiling height of the kitchen to this point. So the ceiling of the kitchen was there, and they had given up 4.5 feet. 4.5 feet of ceiling height. Can you believe that? That's insane. That's a whole studio apartment in New York City. The space is actually not that big, but the wall here is actually non-bearing between this room and the primary bathroom, which is adjacent. And I'm actually going to move the wall maybe 8 or 9 inches into the bathroom because the bathroom space is actually very generous. But gaining the ceiling height to me is the most critical part of the architectural transformation of this space. In execution, the concept of having this glass wall that basically faces the primary bathroom wall behind it is a good idea. But in execution, it's terrible, of course. So I'm going to actually do a much prettier design for this. I have my plans, and I would love to share these with you. So if you imagine the back wall of the kitchen, in place of the glass block wall, I'm going to do a beautiful Palladian window. And then flanking that, I'm going to have these dramatic cabinets that go right up to the ceiling line. So imagine 12 foot of ceiling height in a kitchen. That's just super dramatic. And also, as you know, I love to mix materials. So I'm going to do some kind of a delicious, deep, saturated color for the cabinetry, a contrasting color inside the cabinets, and probably brass on the backsplash, something cool and very shiny. Again, the amphithéâtre exists between this room and the kitchen, and it's very open to the kitchen, which is actually not my personal preference. I will have 2 doors that close off the kitchen, but I also want to keep in mind that it will be symbiotic with the dining room. So I always love to design my kitchens to almost look like bar cabinetry and not quite utilitarian kitchens. So I always love to have saturated color, an interesting wallpaper, an upscale material like brass, just to dress it up a bit. So this is actually going to be, next to the library, the second most transformed space of the house. I can't wait to see this one come together. So we're going to have this fabulous Palladian window centered on the wall of the kitchen with flanking cabinetry, and we're going to have the sink that will be centered on that window. I'm going to move the range wall onto the side elevation, and I'm going to have that on its own feature wall with a beautiful hood over it. And then I'm going to move the refrigerator into the corner here. This is actually a doorway that comes in from the little vestibule off the entrance floor. I'm going to close that off. That little vestibule is going to end up becoming a little closet area. And then we'll just enter the kitchen directly from the dining room. I think the layout's going to be great. The primary bedroom space out of all the rooms in the apartment was actually the most chic. It has this fabulous cognac-colored velvet on the walls. You'd almost think that I actually designed it from the scratch. But unfortunately, I tried to keep it, and it's in bad condition. It's been here for over 55 years, and it has some tears in it. So I think I'm unfortunately going to have to take it down. I do want to raise the doorway openings in this space, and you can see how, look how much wall space there is above the doorways. It's just unbelievable. And going back to the concept of architecturally appreciating ceiling height is really appreciated when you walk through a doorway opening. A doorway opening always draws your eye up, and it really allows you to appreciate the scale and the volume of a room. So that's actually a very critical detail for me, and I think that that's going to be a beautiful transformation for this space. I definitely will have my canopy bed in this room. I love my canopy beds, you guys know that, so I'm excited to see that. And we'll see. I haven't really worked out the color palette for this room yet, but we're getting there. So this is the primary bathroom space, and next to the kitchen, this space, I promise you, will be the most transformed apart from the kitchen. The ceiling height, again in here, has been dropped, and there's a 4.5-foot ceiling of drop space above this bathroom. We've already done some exploratory holes to see that space. So I can't wait to get that ceiling up. And again, the efficiency of the space will be much, much better. I'm going to actually reorganize it so that we have a more efficient bathroom. Currently, the toilet sits in its own little space adjacent. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move the toilet into the foreground area and then give that space that the toilet's in now to the powder room, which is tiny, tiny, tiny currently. So I think that'll be a very nice sequence of space with a beautiful powder room and a little closet vestibule on that side off the entrance foyer. And then I'll center the sink underneath the Palladian window that looks into the kitchen with a beautiful shower in the corner. And then a closet vestibule. I love the idea of having that sequence of space en suite from the bedroom where you walk through and you have a closet area and then a bathroom area. I have that in my apartment at the Carlisle currently. It works perfectly. So I'm sort of going to recreate that. You know, it's always important when you're designing a space for yourself just to think about how you're going to use the space and what works best for you. So this is really going to be custom fitted pour moi. One of the things that made me want to move and get a new apartment was that my old apartment didn't have a guest bedroom. So that was one of the critical, selling points of this apartment, was that it has a guest bedroom that's far at the end of the bedroom hallway, so my guests can really have a private little suite. It's not too big because you don't want to make your guests too comfortable, but it really has a lot of charm. So it has this wonderful curved wall, which I think is just really sweet and dramatic, and an original beautiful marble mantle. This is a gorgeous little fabulous stone fireplace, which of course we're going to keep. And these two closets on either side. There's a closet, it's a nice decent sized closet on one side and another closet on the other side, which are symmetrical on the fireplace mantle, which I think is so charming. We are going to expand the guest bathroom space into this other closet space, only because when we eliminated the closets in the hallway of the library, unfortunately, we're taking a little bit of space from the second bathroom. So we're going to create a little bit of an enlarged bathroom into the second closet space. So this is going to be also a little bit of a design challenge, but I can't wait to see it when it's all done. Thank you so much for joining me on this sneak peek tour of my new apartment. As you can see, I've got a lot of work to do, so I'm just going to get back to my desk. There's another segment coming up soon. Keep an eye out for it. So a lot more fun, a lot more progress, lots more to come. Thanks, Homeworthy. Have a great day.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.